season certainly ended on a downward trajectory. After a 32-9 loss to the Buccaneers, Philly's second largest playoff loss in franchise history. So listen to this. After a 10-1 start, the Eagles lost 6 of their last 7 games. Nick, after the loss, are you concerned about your future in Philly? We're talking JOB.
I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the guys. Again, there's a lot of guys in that locker room, all the guys in that locker room, every single one of them that put their heart and soul into this. I'm not worried about me. You know, as the head coach, I'm just trying to be there for our guys and our staff right now, you know, through a tough time.
I think for us this year, I just don't think we've played well enough. The identity, the consistency, the execution for us, the turnovers, everything, all of those come into play when you're talking about having an opportunity to win championships. And, you know, it's something we have to be able to learn from.
All right. S.A., talk to me. Who should be held most accountable for Philly's collapse?
Well, listen, it would be easy to point to the defense. I'm going to put it on the head coach, Shannon.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm going to just do that simply because I know you lost both of your coordinators. You made an in-season change. You put Matt Patricia on the defensive side of the ball, which was a disaster. I'm not going to lie. Jeff Saturday, Shannon Sharpe, not only have I never played football, I never tried. Other than throwing the football down in the streets, in the streets hanging with my boys. I ain't never tried to play football. And I could tackle better than them damn Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I don't know if I've ever watched a football game in the National Football League in my life where I saw as many missed tackles. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Baker Mayfield, who obviously threw for over 300 yards, threw 3 touchdowns, and played an outstanding game. But some of the passes that he threw, I mean, look at the missed tackles. Look at the missed tackles. I mean, 1, 2, 3 missed tackles on multiple touchdowns. Yeah. And that, to me, is so flagrant. You can talk about things schematically because we looked at the Dallas Cowboys and we saw Green Bay Packers receivers wide open. In the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, folks are right there. They literally can't tackle. They didn't go for the legs. They weren't doing anything. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Offensively, they didn't convert one single third down. They were 0 for 9 on the evening. They weren't getting anything going. A.J. Brown wasn't available. Obviously, Devontae Smith was your guy. Had one big catch. We get all of that. But he was relatively limited. You just look at them. There was no running game. You didn't call any running games. I got to look at the head coach because on both sides of the ball, they seemed ill-prepared, and more importantly, they didn't know how to tackle. And last time I checked in the National Football League, you have to know how to tackle. They didn't know how to do that. That's what it comes down to me. They've been discombobulated 1-6 over their last 7 games. Right. Okay, giving up an average of 30 points per game. I have to look at the head coach. Ultimately, of course, you can look at Howie Roseman as well, because what kind of personnel did you give him? We know they were weak on the backside of defensively. But in the end, it comes down to Sirianni right now, and I think this man is in trouble because of it, guys.
Guys, the Eagles were that car. You know when your check battery light come on, your warning lights come on, and as long as the car is going, you don't stop and take care of it, do you? That's right. You continue to go on. The battery light was on, you like, man, the car running fine. Right. It wasn't until it put them down last night, 32-9, that you say, man, what's going on with the Eagles? There were things going on with the Eagles all year, but you failed to you overlooked it because they were winning. Even when I told you were accepting things and wins, you never would in the loss. Oh, man, man, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. Man, we going back to the Super Bowl. I'm saying, look, you're back in. You're turning the ball over more than you ever did. Midway through the season, Jalen Hurts had more turnovers in 6 or 7 games than he had all of last year. You weren't running the ball with the same conviction. Your offensive line wasn't nearly as violent as it was. And secondly, your defense, they weren't taking it away. You were giving it away. And that last night, that's effort. You look at guys, cornerbacks just putting hands out there. They wasn't trying to put pads on anybody. Right. They just like, oh, you'll go down. I mean, that effort that Brad Barry and them put on tape last night, that's embarrassing. That's the kind of effort that'll get you up out of Philly. That's right. That's the kind of effort that'll get you up, that will have you looking for having you being a free agent when it's really not your turn.
So they gave up on the coach.
They gave up. And it is disappointing because those are some things that you could have fixed. That's really, really bad last night. And it's easy to say Sirianni, guys. It really is because he's low-hanging fruit. because I'm not so sure that Philly really embraced him after that first press conference. But he did get to a Super Bowl last year.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say that he's totally to blame. You're right. They did lose some coordinators. But I'm going to put it on the players. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. We don't give the players nearly as much blame as we give them credit. Because when they're playing well, we give the players, oh, look how well Jalen Hurts is playing. Look at the addition of A.J. Brown. Look at yada, yada, yada. But the moment the players don't hold up their end of the deal, oh, it's Sirianni, it's Brian Johnson, it's the new D coordinator. No, you didn't give them credit when they were playing well. You talked about how well the players were playing. Players, this is on you, and we do not do a good enough job Saturday of holding players accountable when things go wrong.
Yeah, listen, I love what both of y'all said, but I'm going to go even higher. I'm going to start with Roseman and bring it on down, right? Like when you think about what they had at the linebacker position, what they had at defensive back, at the safety position in particular. To your point, Shannon, and you said it, I'll give you full credit. And listen, there's things you're accepting that you wouldn't accept. And you saw teams attacking that portion of your team repeatedly and decided we're not going to make a change or we're not going to do something different. Then midway through, you make a change in defensive coordinator, put Sean Desai up in the box. Now Matt Patricia's the guy, and all of a sudden we're going to try to relearn whatever we're going to be on defense midway through the season, which is always a disaster. But I'll say this. I think there's equal blame to go around all the way. And it goes to Sirianni as well, to your point, because you can't go over on third down, especially an offensive head coach like he is. But man, like where was your identity through the last 7 weeks, right? And where were you? Where did you understand how do we get this thing fixed and how do we stop the nonsense that we keep putting out? 10 runs to Swift last night, 10 runs. And by the way, the last 2 games you played in particular, you played Wink Martindale and you played Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is going to blitz you when you get off the bus to when you get on the plane to go home.
Blitz.
No different than Wink Martindale. Going to blitz you all day, every day. No regard for risk, none of that. They're going to bring it. And there was no plan, right? Like defenses aren't scared if you throw checkdowns versus a blitz as opposed to giving you something, whether it's a QB run out the back or a shot down the middle of the field. They had one to Devontae Smith that we showed as a 50-something yarder, which was his biggest play. But as you look at this team, where were the answers? And I think that's the most confusing part. Like if you're an Eagle and you're standing at your locker room after last night, you're like, what went wrong? Everything. Like where do we point one thing out? And the problem for me is who is going to stand up and say this is the answer? And whether you like Brian Johnson or you didn't like his game plans, there was no identity. Like Shane Steichen, right. Love him, hate him, whatever. He had an identity, and it required the quarterback to run. And they did not do that all season. Maybe he's hurt, maybe he's not, but whatever it is, it looked bad.
All right, listen, I got to challenge both of you guys on this, because I get what you're saying. Player accountability.
Yes.
No problem. Well, whose job is it to hold the players accountable? It's the coach. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, they missed 10 tackles last night.
Yeah.
10 tackles last night. You, Shannon Sharpe, credit to you. You've been talking about what's been going on for weeks.
Yes.
The city of Philadelphia was getting on you. You hating all of this other stuff. You like, listen, man, you're tolerating stuff in the wins that you would never tolerate in the loss. This is what you're doing. And you were pointing out how they were missing tackles. So what I'm saying to both of you is this. I get the part about the player accountability, but how do you amend that? How do you correct that? You know what? By holding them accountable and not waiting until the last minute to do so. They walked into this game. We looked at their front. You can get to the pass. Okay, that's fine. But what are you going to do with your safeties and linebackers? Y'all soft as cottonelle tissue. You can't. They can attack you all day long. Everybody for weeks and weeks and weeks were attacking the middle of the field. The Philadelphia Eagles throw it right at, run right at them. Make sure you get beyond their initial line of defense. And guess what? Their secondary is soft. This is what you can do. You knew this, and you come into this game and think about it. Think about the touchdowns that were scored. Look at the missed tackles.
Yes.
Every single score they had was because of a missed tackle.
Well, how about this here? Since you want me to get analytical, and I'll get analytical for you, just for a second.
Go ahead.
You said Todd Bowles bring pressure. Wink Martindale bring pressure. Hey, Saturday, how about this? Get your ass out of scat protection. Stop all that free release. You've got to bring an extra guy to pick up the extra blitzer. You trying to get 5 guys out when your 5 offensive linemen can't protect. That's why your quarterback keep getting hit in his mouth or keeps having to run for his life. So that's Sirianni, that's Brian Johnson. You know your offensive line that keep bringing one more than you can block.
That's right.
But for some reason, you want to get 5 guys. You want to get every eligible receiver out in a pass block. How about, you know what? Hey, I got to bring a tight end in. I got to keep the back end. So that way it's 6 on 6, not 6 on 5. And secondly, you thought Gardner Johnson, this is how they think. This is how all football teams think like this.
Okay.
Everybody always think we can find somebody better than what we actually have. You didn't realize how good Gardner Johnson was until he wasn't there.
Preach.
And now look at your secondary and look at him in Detroit. That's the difference. Because everybody always thinks we can get better when you have very good in your living room. But you're not satisfied with that.
Yep.
The Eagles' secondary has been bad because they can't hold up, and now the initial rush can't get there as quick as they did last year. When you can't turn the team over, and you're turning it over, therein lies the problem. But it wasn't until the car completely ran out of gas or the check engine light or whatever broke down, that's when you're like, man, we got a problem. It's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Shay, let me ask you this. So after losing 6 of their last 7 games, and we told you earlier how the season started 10-1, should Sirianni be out in Philly?
No. Not after one season. I'm going to give him an opportunity. Hire Roseman need to do a better job of fulfilling that back end. I'm going to be very surprised if that secondary is intact the way it is because it's not very good. They have some young – Fletcher Cox is getting older. Brandon Graham is getting older. And so
Kelsey's retired.
Kelsey's retiring. Lane Johnson's still playing at an MVP level, but they're going to have to get back to what they was. And I understand you want a natural progression with your quarterback to not nearly to run as much as he once did, but that's who they are.
That's right.
In order for you to maximize what Jalen Hurts is and what this offense is capable of, you're going to have to have some of those runs, those built-in runs in there Saturday. I'm sorry. That's just the way you're going to have to do it. But defensively, they need a major overhaul because that defense isn't very good at all.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I agree with it. Here's the thing about the Sirianni thing, I am not one for firing coaches. I don't think just because you fire one, you're going to find one better. It depends on who you're going to hire, all those kinds of things. But I will say this: if I had to compare the debacle in Philly versus the debacle in Dallas, I would say the one in Philly was much worse than the one in Dallas because of the cliff they fell off after being 10-1 to going to losing 6 of 7 and getting boat raced in the playoffs. The Cowboys, they had an embarrassing game. I get it, but it's a game as opposed to an embarrassing half of a season. And so if you're Philly and the chatter coming out of Philly has been on Sirianni, I would say that would be the one that I would probably be least surprised.
I get where you're coming from. And on its face, especially the point that you brought up, Jeff, I completely agree. Dallas is a bad game. The Eagles bad that second half of the season. I get that part.
Okay.
But here's what I would challenge both of y'all to understand. You have a situation, if you're looking at Sirianni and you're saying because of this, after getting him to the Super Bowl last year, he should be fired. No, he shouldn't be fired. I'm with you. That's not the issue. The issue is there something better out there? You see, when you've got Bill Belichick and you've got Jim Harbaugh, and the reason I bring up Jim Harbaugh is not because he's the reigning defending national champion at the University of Michigan, who now just got interviewed by the Chargers, okay? I'm thinking about the Jim Harbaugh that was the coach of the San Francisco 49ers for 4 years and got the 3 NFC championship games and the Super Bowl appearance. And if time had not run out, you have some people who believe Colin Kaepernick and them brothers would have won the Super Bowl. I'm not of that thinking. I thought Baltimore would win, but nevertheless, we know they came back in the second half of that Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh was coaching that team.
Correct.
What I'm saying to y'all is this. If you have 2 coaches that are championship caliber coaches that are available on the open market who you surmise, that would not happen to this collapse, this lack of tackling, this lack of focus, just things falling apart because 2 coordinators leaves you and now you're on your own, and we saw what you were last year compared to what you are now without them. And I'm seeing a guy like Bill Belichick, a 6-time champion. And I'm seeing a reigning defending national champion, both on the market. Now it gets interesting. There's a difference between saying this coach needs to be fired because this happened over the last 7 weeks. I'm with y'all. You keep Sirianni if that's your litmus test. But you're usually saying, okay, it's something better. And when you look at Belichick and you look at Harbaugh and you have the opportunity to get one of those guys, I ask the question again, do you just simply dismiss the notion that Sirianni should be replaced if one of those dudes are somebody I could get?
How are they going to work with Howie Roseman?
That's fair.
Are you willing to move on from Howie Roseman? Because we saw the contentious relationship that ended up happening with Trent Baalke and Jim Harbaugh.
Or Chip Kelly when he was with Howie Roseman.
Right. Oh, and Coach Belichick.
That's right.
Coach Belichick hasn't had to have a general manager oversee him in a quarter century.
Right.
So how are those guys going to work? Saturday, you know that's a very important relationship also. The general manager and the head coach is as important as the head coach and the quarterback. So that's the issue right there, Stephen A. How are they going to work with Howie Roseman?
Okay.
Because once he wrestled power back, Jeffrey Lurie, that's his right-hand man.